JB here. JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Monday, November 24th, 9:18. Really quick rant, talk about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from the S&P futures up in the green, up about 0.75% now off the lows of this morning. Although futures open green overnight and have been green ever since. And we'll see. Big week ahead. Is this the end of the AI bubble popping? If that's what last week was, who knows? If you take a look at the performance so far this month, November performance for the S&P, I think it's down 3.5%, and even with with Friday's rally, the S&P was down 1.3% last week. So the script has been so far in November. The first couple days have been green or bumpy, and then we've had end of day kind of pullbacks and reversals on Friday. So I don't know if we're gonna have a duplication of that this week. Holiday shortened week. We have the Thanksgiving holiday. Markets only open half a session on Friday, so certainly going to be interesting. And also all this data that has been kind of they've been calling it the data fog, right? Markets have been going on without this the jobs report and the CPI data and all this other data we've been used to. Now the fog is going to be lifted. We're going to get data tomorrow, and some of this is all September data, so it's like it's old to begin with. But certainly an interesting week. Is this kind of can we find some footing? Market start to melt higher into the end of the year. We get Santa Claus rally calls going, or are we still in the midst of this AI bubble popping? And we it's a strong time frame. And let's see if I have the chart up here. So I think today is the third best performing day on average since 1950 of the entire year. So and this week, and UPB just posted it. It's positive 70% of the time. Let's see. Well, anyway. All right. So that's kind of quick on overall markets. There's still earnings this week. Tomorrow you have, DELL. I wish I can get, after its downgrade. I think it was last week someone downgraded, double downgrade, all the way down to 120s. I wish I could, it was only a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, Dell's headed to 170. I'll probably sit on my hands on that one. I'm trying to think what the other names are. So, all right. So that's kind of overall market. In regards to the SPY, take a look. I keep talking about that 658 annotation I had from a couple months ago. Came down underneath that for a little bit on Friday before bouncing. Want to see that hold today if there's some kind of reversal. Then on the flip side, you got to look at that 50-day moving average right there at 669. So if we can find some footing, markets can. We're already up 0.75%. So probably, I don't know if we'll have another 1% to that today, but maybe Wednesday or so we can get up to that. Watch that as possible, like a breakout spot, right? So that's kind of overall markets. Also today, like it was only a couple. It's at first it was like almost a foregone conclusion the Fed was going to cut rates 3 times this year, and then all of a sudden over the last couple of weeks, data started coming out, and the expectation was starting to come down that the Fed wasn't going to cut rates at the December meeting. Some of that because of Powell's hawkish comments or uh, whatever catalyst you want to say it was. But all of a sudden last week, at the end of the week, especially when the market was selling off, the probability of a rate cut at December's meeting has been skyrocketing the other direction. Now it's 75% probability. So you have to think some of the reason, or maybe some of the possible catalyst for the markets to find some footing, is that the probability for rate cut goes up and yields start to go down. That would probably be an ideal scenario. Anyway, all right. So that's kind of overall markets. So I'll be watching that today. I'm still open to both sides of the trade here. So to me, I've been using SanDisk as kind of like the proxy for market. I would say sentiment, but for like risk on, risk off. And if you take a look this morning, SanDisk is right at the highs of the day this morning. So I'll be watching that. And who knows, if we can find some footing, maybe some nice squeezes into the end of the week. Friday is my favorite day of the week. I don't know if you told me Friday, and I think the other half day into the Christmas holiday. Those are my two favorite sessions of the entire year. All right, so that's overall market. So what a monster week last week on the heels of the previous 2 weeks too. The put hedges paying. Oracle puts. Who would have gotten it? Was at 227 or so on Thursday, all the way down. I think he had 193 on Friday, but I was able to close some of those out for close to 3,900%. The AMD puts I closed on Thursday for 1,500%. The ASML puts I was like 3,100%. But awesome trades. But I hate down markets, right? It's almost like it's like filthy trying to trade puts and making profits. It feels like evil, right? So hopefully we find some nice upward trades this week. But at the same token, doesn't mean I'm not open to possibility that this is not the end of this bubble popping, right? If that's not the case, I still want to be open to trading puts, and so I'll continue to look at AMD, Oracle, ASML. Lam Research, Broadcom, right? Those are kind of the names I've been looking at for protection. And then if we do find footing, find some names that I've been waiting, dying to buy calls on or add more strikes on. Serve Robotics, the Reddit, so on and so forth. All right, so that's kind of overall names, overall market. Just quick on individual names because we got 6 minutes to the open. Three names that I've kind of been looking at, especially towards the end of the week, RH, right? So if and yields were ticking down Friday, if yields continue to go down, some of these names that have been beaten up, not only because of the overall market, but because the 10-year has been stuck. RH, Pool, those are two names in particular that I'm looking at for some calls. If you take a look at the Pool chart, it actually has a pretty solid pincher. And a pincher is when the momentum indicators start touching the ADX, right? So they pinch. And when you get a pincher, it typically precedes a monster reversal. So, Pool's not the most liquid, volatile name. It's not a sexy name that a lot of people look at. But when you have a pincher like this on a name that's not the most liquid name, they can have some outsized moves. So, I was looking this morning. It only has monthly strikes, and not increments are tough to play on both sides, right? They're $5 increments. So maybe 370s, the 370, excuse me, 270s or 275s. I might look for some December strikes. And then if you get some follow through, locks them in, cover costs, ride the rest. But I love Pool, especially if rates continue to tick down and we get more of a dovish spin on the Fed heading into December 10th. And then RH, right? And RH has been pretty much destroyed. And, they keep talking about the high end retailer being fine. If that's, or the high end consumer being fine, right? If that's the case, then RH should be a name that shouldn't be destroyed like this. Not only that, the tariff situation and those negative tweets from POTUS around North Carolina being the furniture capital of the world and what have you. But you have to think at some point RH squeezes again. So I was looking at some strikes last week. Don't be surprised if I add some lotto calls today for a move to 175 plus. That's RH. And then Align. So 2 weeks ago, I played those Align calls for a nice bounce for some profits. And then it kind of fizzled. And then Friday had a strong session up 7%. One of those names that just at some point it's like someone hits a buy button and it just goes and the options aren't pricing in a solid move like up to 150 plus. So don't be surprised if I add some spec lottos on that. And then, of course, Serve Robotics. At some point, I'll be back in that one. Well, I still have some strikes, but add some more strikes. It's like I'm salivating, but I'm not going to fight the market and bang my head up against the wall trying to add strikes while the market continues to sell this one off. So at some point, I'll look for some more strikes. If I do, they'll be January or further out strikes into 2026. And I think that's about it. I'm trying to think of some of the other names. DELL, I wish I would be a little more convicted on a monster move on DELL. They report after the close tomorrow, and you start looking at some of the strikes. I was looking this morning. Do you think maybe it trades to 140 post earnings? And the 140 weeklies are 85 by 99. It's up a little bit here in the pre-market. Maybe get some further out strikes, play for premium build. I don't know. Maybe I'll nibble some calls on DELL, but just crazy to see it trade down here. And some of the negativity around DELL is because of funny, the irony, SanDisk, right? The memory, all these components are getting a heck of a lot more expensive. The storage and the memory, what is up 500 to 300% in regards to prices. So because of that, the margins on a name like SanDisk, which is kind of like the end, they put all the parts together. When the parts costs go up, a name like DELL takes it on the chin. But anyway, it's a name I think it trades substantially higher, but I'm similar to Serve. I'm not going to fight it. All right, let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.